Welcome to ZalengamMedia, and thank you for joining us once again. In today's special report, we turn our attention to the Tamu border region, a place where the line between Myanmar and India is becoming less a peaceful boundary and more a zone of military build-up, intelligence warfare and proxy conflict. This analysis will explore the recent developments surrounding the junta's construction of bunkers and camps, the role of Shan National Army, SNA, and Meitei militant elements, and the growing cross-border dynamics involving resistance forces such as the Kuki National Army Burma, KNA-B, Kachin Independence Army, KIA, and other ethnic groups. This is not just a story about warfare, it is a reflection of how power, ethnicity, and geopolitics are reshaping the entire frontier landscape. The first point of discussion centers on the rapid construction of bunkers and fortified military camps by the Myanmar junta in and around the Tamu region. This area, historically known as a gateway for trade and movement between the Chin, sagging hills of Myanmar and Manipur in India, is now turning into one of the most militarized zones in northern Myanmar. Reports and field observations confirm that the junta has been reinforcing its positions, building concrete bunkers, deploying armored vehicles, and stationing troops with advanced surveillance capabilities. These are not just for defensive purposes. According to security analysts, the Tamu bunkers serve a threefold strategic function: to block People's Defence Force (PDF) movements in Sagaing, to monitor cross-border refugee movement and smuggling, and to project military influence toward India's frontier villages. Critics and local observers argue that these fortifications are not purely the junta's handiwork. They suspect the involvement or accommodation of allied groups, including the Shan National Army, SNA, and Meitei militant outfits that have reportedly found footholds near or inside these fortified zones. The claim, though difficult to verify fully, is significant because it implies that the junta is turning Tamu into a staging ground not just for internal security, but also for strategic manipulation of neighboring ethnic territories, particularly those inhabited by the Kukis, both in Myanmar and across the border in India's northeastern states. If this is true, it marks a dangerous turn. The militarization of Tamu may not simply aim at controlling the PDF, but at expanding influence over Kuki-dominated lands through proxy forces. A recent example demonstrates the scale of conflict in the area. A 200-strong junta column launched a major combined ground and air attack on a PDF base near Kun Tong village, about 8 miles north of Tamu, causing several casualties. The strikes were followed by raids along the Tamu-Kunlong highway, effectively cutting off supply lines used by local defense groups. The attack, covered by outlets such as Myanmar Now and The Wire, illustrates that Tamu has now become a key operational front. On the Indian side, the tension spilled over when Assam Rifles engaged armed men along the border in May 2025, killing 10 rebels, an incident that sparked outrage across the border and raised questions about Myanmar's infiltration tactics. While the Indian government maintained that it was defending territorial integrity, the resistance side accused Indian forces of acting under the influence of Myanmar's intelligence cooperation. Understanding why the Shan National Army's name appears in this narrative requires examining its political positioning. The SNA, rooted in Shan State, operates as one of several Shan armed groups. Shan State is located in the eastern part of Myanmar, far from the Tamu frontier, but its strategic relevance lies in its complex relationship with the junta. The current military leadership of Myanmar is deeply intertwined with elites who have long-standing economic and political ties in Shan State. This overlap has led analysts to believe that the junta uses Shan-aligned militias as semi-autonomous partners in regions where direct military control is harder to maintain. In return, the SNA gains operational freedom, local taxation privileges, and trade routes, particularly those involving narcotics and jade smuggling routes from northern Shan State. The political theory behind this alignment is simple. As long as Shan militias maintain cooperation with the junta, Shan State remains relatively insulated from the chaos engulfing other regions. Many experts predict that if Myanmar's federal states one day fall entirely under the control of the PDF or the National Unity Government, NUG, Shan State could emerge as a separate power center, a quasi-independent entity that neither fully supports nor opposes the junta. This makes Shan armed groups both useful and unpredictable to the regime. It also explains why the junta might seek to deploy or partner with Shan-aligned elements far from their home base, such as in Tamu, where their presence serves dual purposes, reinforcing junta control and creating ethnic tension with local Kuki groups. Now to the most concerning aspect, the cross-border dimension. The junta's use of militant networks beyond its immediate borders has become an integral part of its counterinsurgency strategy. The regime understands that ethnic armies like the Kachin Independence Army, KIA, Chin resistance groups, and the Kuki National Army Burma, KNA-B, rely heavily on border zones for logistics, recruitment, and safe havens. These resistance movements cannot survive without the border's fluidity, the ability to move men and supplies through porous terrain linking Myanmar's hills to India's frontier. By establishing camps and supporting proxy groups like SNA or Meitei militias, the junta aims to choke these lifelines and deny the resistance a secure base of operation. This tactic mirrors what counterinsurgency experts describe as peripheral disruption, a military approach that targets the fringes of insurgent territory rather than striking their central command. For instance, air raids and artillery strikes on villages such as Korntong near border marker 81, or troop advances through Calais and Tamu, are not isolated acts of aggression, but coordinated efforts to squeeze the PDF and allied forces between hostile borders. By maintaining constant pressure near India, the junta forces the resistance to either retreat deeper into the hills or risk confrontation with Indian border forces. This has also led to accusations that the junta is deliberately provoking border incidents to draw India into its anti-resistance campaign indirectly. The Meitei militant involvement, meanwhile, adds another layer of complexity. With the Meitei-Kuki conflict in India's Manipur state already escalating, reports of Meitei fighters crossing into Myanmar or collaborating with pro-junta elements fuel fears of transnational ethnic conflict. If these groups establish camps inside Myanmar territory under junta protection, it effectively creates an ethnic front line, extending from Manipur into Sagaing and Tamu. The Kuki population, therefore, faces threats from both sides, from the junta's military expansion and from hostile ethnic groups operating under its shadow. Behind these visible developments lies a deeper strategic logic. The Myanmar junta is aware that it cannot control all resistance strongholds simultaneously. Instead, it leverages fragmentation, setting ethnic groups against one another, encouraging localized warfare, and manipulating border dynamics to its advantage. By deploying militants across international boundaries, it blurs the lines between domestic insurgency and regional conflict. In the process, it undermines the solidarity that the PDF and ethnic resistance groups have been trying to build since 2021. The tactic is as psychological as it is military. Where the junta cannot win through conventional force, it tries to make its enemies fight each other. This situation has profound implications for India as well. India's policy toward Myanmar has long been one of cautious engagement, balancing between supporting democratic aspirations and maintaining cooperation with the junta for security reasons. However, as border clashes intensify and refugee influx continues, India's neutrality is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. The construction of bunkers in Tamu and the hosting of militant proxies have forced New Delhi to re-evaluate its security calculus. Several reports, including by the United States Institute of Peace, have noted India's growing discomfort with the junta's tactics, but also its hesitancy to fully support the NUG or the PDF, fearing spillover instability in Manipur and Mizoram. India has responded by increasing fencing, intelligence operations, and, according to some accounts, conducting limited cross-border drone strikes on insurgent positions. Yet these moves remain reactive rather than strategic. On the ground, the humanitarian cost continues to rise. Thousands of civilians have fled Tamu, Calais, and adjacent townships in recent months, seeking refuge across the Indian border. Displaced families report airstrikes, forced conscription, and the destruction of homes during junta clearance operations. The refugees' testimonies often mention new camps appearing overnight, suggesting rapid fortification by the military and its allies. Humanitarian agencies have limited access to these areas, leaving local civil society groups to manage the crisis with minimal resources. The border, once a symbol of cultural exchange, now resembles a scar dividing families, tribes, and communities that once lived as one. The SNA's potential future role remains uncertain. While Shan State is geographically distant from the northwest frontier, its strategic choices could reshape Myanmar's post-war structure. If Shan forces continue cooperating with the junta, they may enjoy short-term stability, but will face long-term isolation from other ethnic states aligned with the PDF. If they turn against the junta, they risk losing the economic privileges that come with quasi-autonomous arrangements. In either case, Shan politics will indirectly influence what happens in Tamu and other border regions, because the junta's confidence partly depends on retaining Shan loyalty. When we look at these dynamics together, a pattern emerges, one that points to an expanding sphere of militarization, proxy warfare, and regional risk. The bunkers in Tamu are not merely military installations, they symbolize the junta's intent to project power beyond its traditional reach. The presence of Shan and Meitei elements reveals a strategy of ethnic manipulation. The targeting of PDF, KNA-B, and KIA strongholds near the border demonstrates a plan to isolate and weaken the resistance by controlling geography. And the continued displacement of civilians shows that this war's front line is not just between armies, but through villages, fields, and homes of ordinary people. In the coming months, much will depend on how effectively the resistance can maintain unity, how far India will go to secure its borders without being drawn into Myanmar's war, and whether Shan and Meitei militias will continue to serve as extensions of the junta's influence. The danger is clear. If these developments go unchecked, the Tamu region could evolve into a multi-ethnic battleground spanning two countries, with devastating consequences for the Kuki population and for regional stability. For now, the conflict remains fluid. Each new bunker in Tamu, each airstrike near the border, and each alliance forged in the shadows marks another step toward a more complex and perilous future for both Myanmar and its neighbours. What happens here will define not only the fate of the resistance, but also the geopolitical landscape of the entire Indo-Myanmar frontier. Thank you for watching this analysis from ZalengamMedia. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember to subscribe to ZalengamMedia for more updates, in-depth analysis, and factual reports on Myanmar's evolving conflict and its impact on Kuki territories and border communities. Sources consulted include Myanmar Now, The Wire, Al Jazeera, Special Eurasia, US Institute of Peace, and Regional Intelligence reports on Myanmar's armed groups and border conflicts.